Episode 3. Seeds for Earth. Chapter 11. The Fractured Trust. Days passed in a tense, uneasy blur. Youlieh felt watched. Every step, every glance, carried the weight of suspicion. Mr. Girthy's last warning echoed in her mind, quiet but sharp. Still, she couldn't stop her work with the echoes. The creatures on Oris S4E depended on her. With every genetic tweak she made, she felt them silent, ancient lives asking for the right to continue. She kept working late into the nights, using her shifts to camouflage her intent. Hints of something larger surfaced. Delayed transmissions, minor data anomalies, signs of hidden resistance. Was she the only one wondering in silence? The Federation's control was absolute. Its presence thick in the air. Girthy's influence reached into every lab. Every decision, his eyes once filled with vision, now seemed hardened by burden, as if carrying his father's legacy had cost him his humanity. Then, a message blinked onto her console. Meet in Vault 22, immediate. Her pulse spiked. Vault 22, the Echo's hidden refuge. Quietly, she shut down her station and slipped away. Inside the vault, Rylan, Corin, and Sirha were already waiting. Tension filled the room. "We have a problem," Corin said. Rylan's jaw was clenched. "They've moved up the launch. The first wave of seeded organisms is scheduled for this week. We don't have time to stabilize our changes." Youlieh froze. "They're not ready. They'll tear through the ecosystem." "Exactly," Corin said. "That's the Federation's plan. No balance, just dominance." Syrah's voice was barely audible. "If we don't act, Oris S4E will be wiped clean." Youlieh felt the urgency grip her. There has to be a way to delay the launch. Corin shook his head. "They're watching us, especially you. Anything suspicious could expose us." A long pause followed. Then Rylan spoke. "There's one option. Risky, but it could buy us time." He explained. "A temporary disruption to the cryonic systems. Enough to force a recalibration and delay deployment." Corin looked skeptical. "If we're caught, we won't be," Rylan said firmly. "But we don't have another choice." Youlieh nodded. "Tell me what to do." Rylan laid out the plan. "Access the cryonics lab after hours. Disable the secondary security. Alter temperature settings just enough to destabilize the organisms. If it works," Youlieh said, "we give them a chance. If it fails, we've come this far," Corin said. "We knew the risk." They all nodded. It was settled. That night, Youlieh and Rylan moved like shadows through the quiet facility. In the cryonics lab, frost hung in the air. Rows of chambers glowed faintly, each one containing life forms engineered to conquer. At the control panel, Rylan disabled the secondary security. 15 minutes, he whispered. Youlieh worked quickly, her fingers steady. She recalibrated the temperature curves. Small, invisible changes with massive impact. As she submitted the final command, a soft alarm chirped. Rylan's eyes narrowed. "Systems check. We need to go." They exited just before reboot. In the corridor, a shadow stepped into their path. "Mr. Girthy." Youlieh Rylan. His voice was calm, but his gaze was cutting. "What brings you here?" Youlieh forced a smile. "Final checks on the cryonics sequencing. I wanted to be sure before launch." He watched her, curious. The system registered a fluctuation just now. Probably nothing, but unusual. Her heart thudded. Minor recalibration. Perhaps. "I'll double check in the morning." A long silence passed. "See that you do," he said coldly. "Loyalty, Youlieh, that's the only thing that matters." Then, after a pause, his eyes flicked briefly to Rylan. "You've always been resourceful." She held his gaze. "Understood." He stepped aside. As they walked past, Rylan touched her shoulder, quiet reassurance. Only once they turned the corner did she exhale. "Do you think he knows?" she whispered. "He knows something," Rylan said. "But we bought time." That night, sleep eluded her. The mission's weight had never felt heavier. Oris IV's creatures, unknowingly caught in humanity's path, now had a sliver of hope. But how long could they hold off the Federation? She stared at the stars beyond her window, cold, distant, silent, and she made a vow. Whatever it took, she would not let them vanish, because this wasn't just survival. It was a stand for life itself. Chapter 12. The Silent Sentinel. The room dimmed as the holographic model of the Ark flickered to life, casting a soft glow over the faces gathered around it. Youlieh stood in silence, transfixed by its intricate design. The Ark wasn't just a ship, it was a dormant, self-sustaining world, engineered to sleep through centuries while quietly shaping humanity's future from afar. Mr. Gerthy's voice broke the silence. The Ark will enter the target system, settle in the asteroid belt, and await the rise of life on Oris 4. While the planet provides the foundation, it's the Ark's drones that will shape the path. When humanity reaches the threshold of civilization, they'll be prepared to carry forward our legacy. It could wait in silence for tens of thousands of years, its patience carved into code, its loyalty blind. His tone was steady, but Youlieh could see the wear in his eyes, the toll of carrying a vision that spanned generations. His father's dream had become a burden. He continued, "These flying discs are the drones that are more than observers. They're sentinels designed to monitor, and when necessary, to intervene." Rylan leaned forward, eyebrows raised. Intervene? In what way? Gerthy keyed a command, and the hologram shifted, revealing swarms of sleek, adaptive drones. Equipped with sensors and genetic tools, they floated like silent custodians of destiny. Their sensor arrays twitching like the antennae of watching insects, hungry to catalog every spark of deviation. Initially, they'll monitor human behavior, environmental adaptation, and socio-cultural evolution. But once an early industrial stage is reached, they'll begin introducing subtle genetic enhancements, boosting traits like intelligence, adaptability, and abstract reasoning. Quietly, incrementally, over generations. A murmur passed through the team. Youlieh felt a knot form in her chest. It was awe-inspiring and deeply unsettling. Eventually, Gerthy said, "These enhanced individuals will become the thinkers, the builders, the architects of a new age. Civilization will accelerate beyond what nature alone could provide." Nadil, the quantum physicist, spoke up. "Will these enhancements be distributed evenly?" Gerthy shook his head. "No. The drones will target isolated populations, selecting promising individuals to maximize long-term effect. It could take centuries, but the outcome will be worth it. A civilization ready for contact, built with our guidance." Youlieh's thoughts raced. The drones weren't just tools, they were invisible engineers of an entire future. Humanity would grow under the Ark's unseen hand. "Isn't this tampering?" Rylan asked. "We're scripting their evolution." Gerthy met his gaze, unflinching. "It's the only way to guarantee survival. We're not imposing a destiny, we're accelerating one. Otherwise, we risk chaos, failure." The team fell quiet. Youlieh stared at the floating image of the Ark. So elegant, so ominously powerful. The silence it represented wasn't passive, it was calculated, protective, unrelenting. As the briefing ended, Youlieh lingered behind, staring at the hologram. Gerthy approached. "You have doubts," he said gently. She nodded. "If the drones intervene every time progress stalls, are we letting them evolve? Or are we just programming them?" He exhaled. "Youlieh, we're trying to seed the future, not control it. If we don't guide their path, there may be no civilization to inherit this world. Nature doesn't promise progress, it only promises change." She didn't argue, but deep down, she wondered, would future humans ever know the truth? Would they suspect that the arc of their history had been shaped by unseen hands? "They'll believe in their own ingenuity," Gerthy said, almost as if reading her thoughts, "and that belief will be enough. The drones won't control them. They'll simply help them become what they already could be." Later that night, in her quarters, Youlieh reflected. The people who would someday walk Oris 4 would think their destiny was their own. They would marvel at their discoveries, never knowing that invisible machines had guided every step. She wondered if their achievements would feel any less real, knowing they were born of silent manipulation. But maybe, she thought, that wasn't so different from Earth. Didn't every generation build upon the unknown efforts of those before them? The Ark was just the next step in that legacy, an ancient hand on the wheel of time. And in that thought, she found a strange kind of peace, because the Ark wasn't just preserving life, it was preserving hope. Chapter 13. Departure. The Ark loomed in the shadows of the assembly hangar, its silver hull catching the faintest glimmers from the overhead lights. Around it, silence reigned, save for the low mechanical hum of dormant systems preparing for a journey across the stars. Youlieh stood on the final staging platform beside her team, the stillness between them heavy with meaning. In a few short hours, the Ark would begin its 68,000-year voyage, vanishing into space long before any human eye could witness its destination. The launch base, buried beneath layers of reinforced rock, had been built in secret, hidden away from the wider population, a cradle to send off the most ambitious vessel ever conceived. Only a robot crew remained, tasked with overseeing the final checks. These synthetic operators, crafted for resilience and precision, worked in perfect silence. They moved like clockwork, adjusting launch parameters, monitoring internal systems, and scanning telemetry with inhuman accuracy. Their presence was both eerie and comforting. Flawless executors of the Federation's most delicate operation. Mr. Gerthy stood at the control panel, his gaze locked on the Ark. This was the culmination of a lifetime. The legacy that would bear his name long after time had forgotten the man himself. The Ark's journey will span tens of millennia, he said finally. None of us nor our descendants will live to see its outcome. But we must trust that what we've built will endure. Youlieh felt the gravity of those words. The Ark would carry their hopes, their vision, and an unfathomable silencing to the void. It wasn't just a machine, it was a seed planted across time. Rylan gestured toward the rows of drones embedded along the vessel's hull. Each drone is set to deploy in timed waves, entering Oris IV's atmosphere to track and record humanity's evolution. As they reach key stages, especially early industrialization, the drones will begin small-scale genetic modifications. Select individuals will gain subtle enhancements to guide them toward greater innovation. Youlieh nodded. These modifications would appear natural. No one would ever suspect they were being gently steered by unseen hands. It was a quiet intervention, but one that could change the course of history. How long will it take? She asked. Centuries. Possibly millennia. Rylan replied. The Ark won't interfere hastily. It will wait for thresholds, for tipping points. It's not here to control, only to nudge, Mr. Gerthy added. The Ark is a guardian. Humanity will believe their progress is their own. And in a sense, it will be. We're simply ensuring they make it far enough to survive. Corin, ever the realist, asked what they all feared, and if the AI evolves beyond its directive. The question hung in the air. It's adaptive, Gerthy admitted. It must be. But its mission is deeply encoded: preserve life, promote advancement. It may interpret this flexibly, yes, but that is the price of longevity. They fell into silence, each one weighing the enormity of what they were about to do and trusting not just knowledge, but the future of a species, to a machine sailing across eternity. As launch protocol commenced, the control room buzzed with final sequences. The air was taut with tension. Mr. Gerthy stepped forward, resting his hand on the master. Control, this is for all of us, he said. For what comes next. He entered the final authorization codes himself. Begin dormant phase. The Ark dimmed. Systems fell silent. Power routed inward, drawing the vessel into a long meditative sleep. A soft chime echoed through the room. The Ark detached, gliding along magnetic rails through a concealed launch tunnel. On screen, it burst from Earth's upper atmosphere, vanishing into space with a final pulse of light. Gone, but not lost. In the days that followed, the team began dismantling the launch base. Their task was done. Soon, they would scatter back to their lives, their roles, their silence. Youlieh stood alone on the observation deck. The Ark was far away by now, and yet she still felt its presence like a ghost in her chest. pulsing faintly across the dark. She knew its path. It would drift into the asteroid belt of the target system, lie dormant, and then begin its mission dispatching drones, watching. It would drift into the asteroid belt of the target system, lie dormant, and then begin its mission dispatching drones. Watching from a distance, shaping humanity's return to greatness, Rylan joined her quietly. They watched the stars together. "Do you think they'll ever know?" she whispered. "The people on Oris 4, will they ever suspect?" He shook his head. "No, and that's the point. They'll believe their progress was their own. And in that belief, they'll find purpose." They stood in silence, two architects watching their creation vanish into the cosmos. It was no longer theirs. It belonged to the future. Chapter 14. The Final Seed. The facility pulsed with quiet urgency. Engineers and biologists moved in tense coordination, recalibrating systems and verifying the genetic payloads. Countdown timers blinked across every screen, casting a cold glow onto strained faces. This was at the Federation's final stage. Either Earth would be seeded anew, or the engineered microbes would overwrite Oris IV's fragile ecosystem, dooming every native species in silence. Youlieh stood at her lab console, watching strings of DNA sequences scroll across the screen. Each strand had been meticulously engineered to ignite the beginnings of life on a newly formed Earth. Microbes built for endurance. Genes coded for long-term survivability. Evolution, according to Federation estimates, would unfold over hundreds of thousands of years, just enough time for Earth to mature into a viable fallback world for human expansion. But within the faction known as Echoes, the mission had taken a different turn. They moved quietly through the lab, glancing only when necessary, their coordination wordless but precise. Their goal, sabotage but subtly. Delay the evolution. Alter the code. If successful, their tweaks would push Earth's biological timeline, not forward, but back by tens of millions of years. Maybe far enough to render it irrelevant to the Federation's grand design. Rylan approached, voice low. "Have you finalized the protein sequences? We need those development cycles stretched as far as they'll go." Youlieh nodded, eyes scanning the final strings of modified code. Lower metabolic rates, slower reproduction, minimal adaptability. Everything needed to stunt growth imperceptibly, but effectively. "They'll evolve at a fraction of the rate," she said. "If we're right, 65 million years before anything complex emerges." Rylan gave a faint, grim smile. "Perfect. By then, the Federation's Ark will have either broken down or been destroyed somewhere along its route to the asteroid belt." They didn't speak of sabotage aloud. The walls might be listening. But in every altered sequence, in every protein misfold, they left a message. Let nature breathe. It was their quiet rebellion, one last stand for a future uncontrolled, and maybe, just maybe, it would buy Osiris for the freedom to find its own path. The next morning, the full team gathered for a final briefing. The room buzzed with pride, exhaustion and something else beneath the surface. Unease. A few engineers shifted nervously. Too much faith was being placed in code no one fully understood. Mr. Girthy stepped to the front. His voice was composed, eyes fierce. "Today, we seed life itself, legacy born from necessity. A promise of survival for generations we'll never meet. This is our mark on eternity." Youlieh listened, her expression unreadable. She wondered if he knew, if he suspected. But his focus remained firm, his belief unshaken. The screen behind him lit up, displaying the flight paths of the asteroids. Small engines, long trajectories, surgical precision. Each asteroid carried engineered microbes capable of withstanding the violent entry into Earth's atmosphere, and, eventually, giving rise to life. The room held its breath, as Girthy spoke of legacy, of purpose, of sacrifice. Youlieh's thoughts drifted to the secret embedded in the code. Hidden in base pairs and protein folds were the seeds of delay, resistance, hope. When the briefing ended, Mr. Girthy gave a final order. "The future begins now. May our work speak across time." But which future, Youlieh wondered. The one they planned or the one they secretly planted, buried deep in molecular silence. Later, Youlieh and Rylan lingered in the emptying lab. "This is it," he said. "Our last chance." She met his gaze. "The code is locked. Once those asteroids launch, there's no turning back, whatever happens. We gave Oris for a chance. And maybe, just maybe, the creatures will find a way to survive." Hours later, the control room buzzed with countdown protocols. On the monitors, the asteroids waited silent, dormant, loaded with life. Oris 4 was a vessel for a future that might never know its architects. Youlieh's heart pounded. The modified genomes were masked well. To Federation systems, they'd read as normal variants. But she knew better. Within those sequences lay delays. Barriers, resistance. 3, 2, 1. Launch. Engines flared. The asteroids disappeared into the void, each one carrying not just microbes, but a message buried in biology. "Not on your terms." Applause erupted around her. But Youlieh stayed silent, watching the stars. Mr. Gerthy approached, pride softening the lines of his face. "This is the beginning of something extraordinary, Youlieh, humanity's future." She forced a smile. "It's remarkable." He studied her. "You seem distant. Is something wrong?" "I'm just processing. It's a lot to let go of." He nodded solemnly. "Letting go is the cost of creation. We've done our part. Now it's up to nature and time." She nodded again, but her thoughts were elsewhere. He would never know. The Federation would never suspect. Their hands had nudged the timeline off course, and maybe that was enough. That night, Youlieh and Rylan stood on the observation deck. "What do you think will happen?" she asked, watching the stars. Rylan didn't answer at first. His gaze drifted across the stars, as if searching for something. "Maybe nothing," he said finally, voice low. "Or maybe everything we did will echo forward in ways we'll never see." She nodded, hope flickering through the heaviness. They had planted the seeds. Slower ones, wiser ones. Now, all they could do was wait, and trust that time, in its quiet unfolding, would protect what they had tried to save. Chapter 15. Seeds in the Dark. The facility was silent, a silence to complete, like the breath before a storm. Then came the footsteps. Mr. Gerthy entered, his presence as cold and exacting as always. His expression was unreadable, carved in the image of the father whose legacy he had been groomed to fulfill. "Youlieh Rylan," he said with a nod. "Your dedication has been extraordinary. Because of you, this project will succeed." She offered a faint smile. "Thank you. It's surreal. To be done." He paused, studying her. "Yes," he said, voice low. "A remarkable achievement. One that will define our civilization's future." But something in his tone twisted the air. Rylan shifted uneasily. "Is something wrong?" Gerthy's eyes hardened. "The Federation has sacrificed more than most will ever know. Resources, lives, trust. And now that the mission is complete, we can't allow uncertainty. Loose ends." Youlieh's heart froze. She glanced at Rylan, reading the same fear in his face. "What are you saying?" she asked, barely able to voice it. Gerthy gestured. The doors opened, and armed guards stepped in, faces expressionless. "I'm saying that the mission's success depends on silence," he said. Total silence. A chill swept over her. She understood now. This had always been part of the plan. They had never been meant to leave. "You can't do this," she whispered. "We gave everything to this mission. You can't just erase us." Gerthy didn't flinch. "You will be remembered as part of the legacy. But no risk can remain. Not now." For a split second, something flickered in his eyes. Regret, maybe, or recognition. Then it was gone, replaced by the machinery of duty. Rylan took a step forward, his voice sharp with fury. "This isn't legacy. This is murder." Gerthy didn't blink. "The mission comes first," he said simply. The guards moved in. Youlieh gripped Rylan's hand, her mind racing. There was no escape. No alarms, no options. They were already entombed in the very project they had devoted their lives to. The soft hum of the ventilation was the only sound. Even the walls seemed to lean inward, sealing their fate. Rylan gave her hand a gentle squeeze. "We did what we could," he said softly. "It wasn't perfect, but it was ours." She didn't feel fear. Not anymore. What she felt was betrayal, heavy and metallic in her chest. But beneath it, a quiet pride. They hadn't stopped her, not completely. She looked at him and nodded, her heart breaking, but not from fear, from knowing they would never see what they had created. Still, their rebellion lived, hidden in the code of the seeds they'd launched. Maybe someday, someone would find it. As the guards closed in, she let her thoughts drift far from the metal and betrayal surrounding them, to the life beginning light years away. Two oceans, stirred by alien tides. Two microbes, splitting, evolving, to something better. A world untouched, free, slow, alive. Their names would fade. Their voices would vanish. But somewhere, on a distant planet bathed in pale sunlight, something stirred. Tides shifted, cells divided, leaves reached toward a foreign sky. No monuments, no memory, only the echo of rebellion, coded into life itself, and in the dark, it would grow. This is the end of the audiobook. Thank you so much for listening to Seeds for Earth. I hope you enjoyed the journey. If you did, please like the video and subscribe for more stories. Your support means the world.